All right, look, I've been peeping around the TTRPG community lately, and it's been just a lot of discourse about rules. And, you know, I guess I just wanted to add some more to that fire because I'm a helpful individual. So I went on Twitter to ask the hard-hitting questions. Really, I just wanted to see what everybody had to say because Twitter's the best place for discussion. Like, really, it's a place to learn and grow and communicate with the people around you. Now, what am I saying? It's a place for pure content. Look at all this stuff that I can talk about now. But yeah, I've been writing. I'm playing games, and really, right now, rules are just so, man, they're so interesting to me right now, and I just want to talk about them. I love changing them and using different types of rules. And before everybody starts getting on me about like, oh, if you're just gonna homebrew D&D to the point where it's not even D&D anymore, why don't you just play another system? There is a difference between homebrewing a system me and my friends already know how to play versus learning an entirely new system. Because, yeah, I agree. You should totally go play third-party stuff. It's super awesome and it's fun, and people have put a lot of work and time into it, and you can give money to a company that isn't Wizards of the Coast. But, man, sometimes we have children and we don't have time for stuff like this, and it's just easy to go, I'm 30 games into a campaign, and sometimes I want to change a little rule. There's nothing wrong with that. So if I change like 10 or 20 or 30 or 40, maybe write my own system that's effectively the exact same thing, would you guys kickstart that? Whatever. We'll talk about that later. What we are going to talk about today is another Kickstarter that launched right now because today's sponsor is Ghostfire Gaming. Of course, the goats themselves, they're actually ghosts. I should stop doing this and I should go get a real job. No, for real though, Ghostfire dropped a new Kickstarter today. It's called The Ethereal Expanse and it's looking pretty cool. It's a setting guide, kind of like a campaign setting sort of thing, and it explores the wondrous region on the astral plane where sailing ships can sail across a magical sea of ethereal liquid, and it is stunningly illustrated. Like, look at all of this art. So not only does it just have like a cool little setting, but there's 12 new subclasses that hail from the factions within this world. There's backgrounds and spells and Ghostfire's heritage trait system, which allows you to build your character from over 50 different traits, along with an in-depth naval combat rules. There were those people that played that, you know, that setting that came out a little bit for 5th edition, and you were like, I don't like the combat for the naval ships. It isn't my favorite thing. Then why don't you go check this one out, because Ghostfire typically writes really great stuff, and maybe you'll like it and you'll want to travel across the astral plane, visiting various planets and fighting strange creatures. Go check it out with the link down below. That was a bit much. All right, so I went on Twitter and I asked, what's the one rule that your table always is changing or you just never use? I love to see various options folks are playing with. And Paladin responded with, I've been gaslit too many times regarding whether or not you get a pet based on starting equipment. I will not elaborate. What? I totally feel this. Do you know how many different rules that we just were played wrong because someone at the table is just like, no, that's how it is. And then we all just decided to believe that person. But I can't believe, Paladin, that it has gone to a point where you get a pet. I don't think anybody gets a pet to start. Ranger maybe gets a companion. I don't think you can get a pet. Maybe one of the trinkets you can get is like a live mouse. Spencer, can one of the trinkets you get at the beginning, like a trinket that you can start the game with, can it be a mouse? Like a live living mouse? Spencer says she thinks so, so that means it's right. We're going to continue the cycle. Initiative, depending on who in my group is DMing, the rule changes to be 10 plus initiative bonus, or you can pick between 10 plus and rolled, or what I personally do, kind of stolen from Colton, initiative is rolled at the beginning of the session. Have I talked about Colton's initiative rule? So we've been playing Wild Beyond the Witchlight over on Arcane Arcade, and Colton just I don't know if he made this up or he found it somewhere, whatever, as DMs were constantly stealing from each other anyways. He got this new rule that I just thought it was genius. We all love it, where we roll initiative at the beginning of the game. So then when combat happens, the person who goes first is the person who acts first. So we all roll at the beginning of the game, and then about midway through, we get into a combat, and whoever strikes first, they're first, and then we go through initiative. It is such a flawless system because the only downside is like, oh, if you roll really high, you're not going to go first. But you roll it at the beginning of the game, so you kind of forget. And then once you get to the combat and somebody goes first, you kind of just accept it. It's like, yeah, all right. I mean, I'm going to get to go eventually. This is the order. If I wanted to go first, I should have just acted first. That is such a great way to do it. But me personally, responding to that person, I am not a big fan of the 10+ initiative rule. I had a whole video where I responded to Logan about it because he had talked about combat and stuff like that. And personally, I think it's a little boring just because every combat is effectively going to be the same. If your dex is +1, and yes, you can, oh, Spencer, you can get a petrified mouse. Well, you can get a pet. You can definitely get a pet rock. But basically every combat would be the same. So if you've got a wizard, a ranger, a barbarian, and a druid, and everybody's got varying different dexterity bonuses, maybe somebody's got the alert feat or something, the initiative is going to be the same every time. The wizard knows that they will always be later, and that, to me, kind of sucks. But I am a fan of jumping right into the combat, so I really like Colton's initiative rule. In my opinion, it's like that episode of Bluey, Lucky's dad's rule, where like all the kids hate it at first, but then they try it and then it becomes super fun. That's how it sounded to me at first that we've been playing. I'm like, this is the greatest way to run initiative ever. So love it. Health potions rule: bonus action to take one yourself, action to force feed to someone else. Yeah, I don't hate that. I think that's cool. I know so many tables that run with bonus action potions, and to me, I'm always just like, I don't want healing to be that easy, because that's really easy. But then I forget health potions are a whole consumable. Like, you use it and it's done. So maybe it should be like a bonus action thing. That's a good way to get around, like, if you want to give it to somebody else, it's your whole action. Kind of like that. Using potions is always a bonus action. Okay, yeah, I got it. Fall damage. On my table, rule is there is no max cap, 20d6 for it, and instead of rolling damage, characters get flat 6 damage for each 10 feet they fall. Also, minimum distance to which you'll get damage is 15 feet. That's cool. I like that a lot. I think the roll damage is still kind of fun, but it is kind of weird for it to, like, do like 2 damage. I don't know. But I like that because it makes falling a little more dangerous, but you do give them a buffer, like that 15 feet. Like 15 feet, you can still fall and be okay. But if you fall 20 feet, you're going to take damage. I think that's cool. Because then you could calculate it too. Like, you could be like, I know I'm going to take 6 damage. I could probably survive this fall kind of thing. Oh, that's awesome. You can switch and use weapons during your turn however you want without spending an action to do so. Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of people play by this way anyways, unless like you're playing Pathfinder or something that's a little bit more crunchy or tactical. The more I play 5th edition, the more I'm like disliking action, bonus action, move, and reactions. I really love the way Pathfinder 2e does it with its 3 action thing. It's so much easier for like a GM to make like an improvised thing that you can do, just a little like 1 action or a 2 action thing. We do the same thing in our Fallout game where we use action points. So you get about like 10 to 15, and you can even make it smaller within that. But I agree, a whole action to change your weapon, I'm not a big fan. Not a big fan. I'd be okay with bonus action, but then it kind of sucks when the player's like, okay, I'm going to take out this weapon and then I'm going to use this cool thing that I can do when I attack, and then they can't do it. I don't know. I just think that the action, bonus action, reaction kind of system, it's easy and it works, but I think it can set up for disappointment sometimes when it's like, can't do that. It's like, well, what if I don't move? And it's like, oh, well, wait till next turn. Enlarge Reduce has very different rules depending on what we're casting it on, mainly because my table likes to carry around tiny items they've stolen or liberated, like their Ant-Man. Yeah, okay. Any time in our games that something gets bigger or smaller, somebody, the book has a description on what it's supposed to be. It's not even supposed to be that much, but every time somebody describes it, it's like one player will be like, oh, this big. And then another player will go like this, and it'll just progressively shrink until somebody's like, isn't this character like an inch tall? And it's like, no, they were never an inch tall. The description has just gotten smaller throughout the game. That happened in our Icewind Dale game. Mia, her character Immolation, had gotten the ability to like get really big, like as a giant, like get really large. And I described like she'd get like 18, 20 feet tall. There was a point where like, okay, I'm going to get an Immolation's bag. And I'm like, she's not that big. Like, she's not 30, 40 feet tall, but we just kept accepting it. Like, oh yeah, she's a skyscraper. Like, she just kept getting taller. So yeah, I just think that's funny, and I like to play into it as a DM because it's just a good time. That would be material components for us. Sometimes we use them, others we forget them. Most of the times you just burn gold to replace the expensive ones. It's sad because I really like using components and only get to use them when I'm DMing. Yeah, I totally, fully agree with that. Like, the components I think are so cool, and they add like a really cool flavor to spellcasters, but the ones you only have to really keep track of are the gold ones. But the gold ones, a lot of the times the players will take them and then not know, and then want to cast Revivify, and oh no, you need this, and it's like, all right, just spend the gold for it. But what I normally do is, if it's the first time they're going to cast the spell and they forgot, I go, okay, your character would have known to at least buy a diamond, so you can have 1 diamond for free, but the next time you cast this spell, you are not going to get it. You need to go buy that diamond, or you need to find a diamond, or something like that. And I know that some people may say that that kind of sounds a little meticulous, like, why are you going to make your player go and do that just to be able to cast a spell? And I think that there's some adventure that you can find in that. Like, imagine the players go do a dungeon, somebody dies, that situation happens. I go, okay, but you need to find a diamond next time. And they come back to the city. They're like, well, we need to find a diamond. That is a whole adventure now that the characters get to go on, where they get to go through the city, they get to interact with the tools that I've created, and they get to try and find a diamond. And then I get to kind of react to that as the dungeon master. And I think that those kinds of adventures are super, super fun, where the players just need a little thing, and then I can throw in an NPC, a little bit of like the plot. Like, what if getting a diamond in the city is really hard because the villain is making the nearby mines dangerous with monsters, so the players have to go there, defeat a monster, and get a couple of diamonds. Then I can reward them with like 3 or 4, and then they feel like they earned something. Like, I don't know, I think that there's a lot of adventure to be had in that, and instead of just being like, here, just have the thing, like, I don't know, I think those tools are there to create story and create adventure, and I love stuff like that. Inspiration doesn't give advantage, it's a reroll. Healing potions, yeah, I like that a lot, to be honest. Inspiration giving advantage. I do both, actually. So we do inspiration coin. I have that in my homebrew videos, and basically you flip it. You get 1 each game, you flip it, and when you flip it, you can re-roll a d20, or you can get advantage on a d20. And then if you ever roll a natural 1, or I roll a crit against you and your coin is flipped, you get to flip it back over. And Colton actually did a really cool thing with our Wild Beyond the Witchlight game, where if you know anything about that campaign, your characters have lost something. It has been like whisked away to the Feywild, and he ruled that we don't get to start with our coins. They start flipped until we get the thing that we lost. And I think that this was a cool way to do it, because we could still get them if we rolled a natural 1 or if we got crit, but it was a character sheet thing that made us remember, like, oh yeah, the thing that I lost, I'm trying to get that back. And just recently, me and Spencer got our things back, and it's so cool to now have that reward. Like, oh, I get to start with an inspiration. It's so cool. Healing potions is a bonus action, self only. We also keep changing how we treat crit hits. We mostly track the number of crits we do and receive, and at the 3rd time we inflict, receive an injury, but the exacts vary. Oh, that's super interesting. So if you do like every 3rd crit you do, you can do like an injury. That's super interesting. You can make it to where, like, depending on the type of damage it is, so if you do like slashing or piercing and that's the crit, that they like bleed, or if you do like a fire spell, then they burn, or if it's cold damage on the 3rd crit, then it's like they get slowed, or if it's necrotic damage, then maybe like their strength wanes. Oh, there's so many options you could do with that. I love that. Like, if it's electricity, like instead of there being like an injury, it could be like a status effect instead. Oh, there's a lot you can play with that. That's fun. Inspiration goes to the standard RP or cool action moment of the night, but must be used before the end of the next session to avoid players stacking it, and it gets used. Makes players want to think outside the box and do cool stuff. Yeah, we rule the same way. If you do something cool and your coin is flipped, then sometimes I'll flip the coin back over, or sometimes I'll grant an extra one. Like, it may already be flipped, and I'm like, you can have an extra one for the session, because the coins only, they're per session. You don't get to stack them, you only get one. But the funny thing is, we used to do this rule where you would have a card, like a deck of cards, and you got a random card, and it would give you a random bonus to a skill, but they were per game. So at the end of each game, if somebody didn't use their card, everybody was always using them by the end. So we called it like the end of game backflip. So it's just like, oh, I didn't use my card. Oh, quick, I'll do a backflip and add my card to it really quick, as like we were ending the session. So it's like our characters at the end of each game were just doing sick backflips. Flanking giving advantage is always ignored at our table. We feel it makes combat less fun. Party flanking a single BBG and all getting advantage, or the party being flanked by many smaller enemies all getting advantage, just isn't fun for us. And I agree. I've talked about flanking is kind of dumb. I just think there's so many ways to grant advantage in 5th edition that like just giving advantage for flanking just kind of removes your creativity, in my opinion. So giving flanking like a +1 or a +2, I normally rule with +2, I think works. Though I don't allow flanking for monsters that are typically like mythic or legendary or something like that, or if they have blind sense, or if they have multiple eyes, or if their passive perception is above like 18, then it's not flanking. They're too perceptive, they're too aware. But that applies for player characters as well. So in our Evenfall stream that we did, Grace's character Phelan, his passive perception was so high that whenever enemies would flank him, he just couldn't be flanked, and I loved that. Was just a lot of fun, and like a cool way to have that flavor come to the character of being like super aware of stuff. So I just like my characters to get advantage and bonuses in different, more creative ways than just flanking and stuff. And you know what? Hot take, I think opportunity attacks are silly. I don't like them. They you know why? Because they force you to stay in one spot. 5th edition combat rewards you for going up to a bad guy, staying still, and whacking him as often as you can without ever moving. That is what you should be doing. That's what the game tells you to do. And we've been playing Pathfinder, and we've been playing my Fallout system where that isn't a thing, and I like it a lot more. There's a lot more maneuverability and options in combat. I think it's cool. For 5e, jumping. The rules for jumping are just so jank that sometimes you say screw it and just feel left and just feel it out. Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that hard. I mean, high jump is a little weird, but I feel like long jump, it's just you can always clear 5 feet, and then you can go a number of feet extra equal to your strength score. So if you have a strength of 10, then you can go 15 feet. Then if you want to go more than that, roll an athletics check, and if it's above 10, then okay, you do it. Depending on the interaction, we make object interaction a bonus action. Opening a bag to go reveal a potion of healing, or another player can take it out of your bag without spending an action to sift through it. Yeah, I mean, doing more in your turn, it's just fun. I tend to do the same thing. I think in the game, like, opening a door is an action, which is like crazy. Pretty sure all players are shoulder checking doors in combat, and it's not even a bonus action. We rarely use spell concentration checks, only if I decide the damage is great enough to warrant, very rare, or if the players just say they're trying to break my caster's concentration. It just slows down the game. I've never thought about not playing with concentration. I feel like we did when we first started 5e because we didn't understand the rules, and spellcasters felt super powerful, and then they got like kind of balanced out when the concentration was actually a rule. I feel like the biggest thing it does is it's a giant turnoff for spellcasters to take certain spells. I think the biggest thing actually is that you can't cast 2 of them at the same time. I actually think you could totally rule that you take damage and you're not concentrating anymore, because sometimes with haste, man, that sucks. And I think the big thing that would have to stay would be you can't cast haste and fly at the same time. Like you have to only pick one. You can't do both, because then, man, you can get in some really crazy combos. Climbing should be acrobatics. There, I said it. I mean, sure, depending on what you're doing. You're gonna make acrobatics for everybody. The guy who's really strong, you're gonna make him do backflips up the mountain. Come on, what? There's a lot about potions in here. If a PC is proficient in a skill, rolling a nat 1 on its check is not considered a critical failure. It can feel pointless dedicating proficiency to anything if a nat 1 essentially nullifies it all. You'll likely not reach the DC with a low roll, so why punish the PC more? I mean, there aren't crit fails for skill checks in 5th edition anyways. Rolling a 1 it's just the lowest you can roll. I prefer that rule anyways. A crit fail should only be on like attack rolls. If you rule with crit fails on skill checks, that's a cool way to balance it out. I agree with that. I think that's kind of neat. No one on my table likes preparing spells. They just pick some things and never change. That's so funny. That's awesome. Props to your players. My players are wanting to change their spells on short rests. Character creation. My group added that everyone gets a racial feat at level 1 for free. I did that one time. It was fun and very powerful. And for stats, we rolled standard 46, drop the lowest, and re-roll the lowest of the 6. We are also fine with totally reflavoring classes, subclasses, multi-classes. Hell yeah, Shuriken Sean. Just play that into that power fantasy. Just be strong and be cool and fight big monsters. That's awesome. Not particularly the way I like to run Dungeons & Dragons sometimes, depending on like what it is. Like we're playing Strixhaven right now, and that's just a slice of life school anime, and they're powerful at level 2, and I love it. Typically, I'm more for the gritty, realism, tactical combat kind of game, and yeah, that's just kind of the way I like to roll. But you You guys do you. Was there any rules in here that you thought was kind of cool? I'd love to hear more in the comments. I'm sure that there's going to be some rules I steal from this and other people are going to steal from this because that's what we do as game masters. We just commit theft and make our games fun for our players. So make sure to talk about your players before you just drop a rule on top of them. And if you want to bring one up to your GM, you know, be respectful. Be like, hey, you don't have to do this, but I think this would be kind of fun. All right, go check out Ethereal Expanse. That's the end of the video.